Alea. I'm the founder of Sugarcladder Guardians. We're very happy to be here. My talk today is going to be just talking a little bit about Sugarcladder Guardians, and then also the main part of the talk is going to be monsters and mayhem. It's troubleshooting and tips for your tiny marsupial monsters. So it's going to be common problems that you'll encounter in glider room ships, and then what you can do about them, or maybe how to prevent them too. Oh, that's me. I'm Alea. I hope you guys can see that, read that.
Is it okay to sit here?
And my email is up there too. It's alea@sugarcladderguardians.com if you ever want to email me, or you can find me on Facebook. Very easy. So Sugarcladder Guardians, we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. I founded it in 2015, I believe in June. We have 8 board members. Sandra's one of them, I'm one of them, and then 6 who aren't here. And 5 moderators who help us run the group. And Laura is one of them. She's over there. And our main purpose is to help gliders in need and educate owners on glider care. So that's our overarching goal. We have some programs and resources that I would let me follow along this that I would like to highlight. A lot of you in here are mentors for us, so I'm going to start with that first. We have a great mentoring program where new owners come to our group, our Facebook group usually, or they can email us through the website and they get help one-on-one. We match them up with a veteran glider owner. They get help one-on-one. If you need one of those, you let us know. We have 46 active mentors in 4 countries, so US, Canada, Mexico, UK, and we're working on a few in Asia also. If you want to learn more about our mentors, you can look at our mentor spotlights, which our admin or moderator Christy does. She does a great job. Our mentors are awesome. We love you. Thank you for mentoring if you mentor for us. And also a cute little story. So once we try to match up mentors, sometimes at least by location. So once we had a mentor who was in the Reno, or a mentee who was in the Reno area, we were trying to match her up with a mentor. So I'm like, oh, Kelly, she's in Reno. And it turned out they actually lived on the same street in the same neighborhood. So yeah, we reach a lot of people, and it's really a great program. We also support the Sugarcladder Foundation, which is a newer nonprofit organization, and they fund the Sugarcladder nutrition study. So I feed PetPro, and my diet is based on PetPro kibble. And then if you use my name in the referral box on PetPro, you get a discount, and then all of my commission, 100%, goes to the Sugarcladder Foundation to help fund the diet study, so we can all learn more about Sugarcladder diets. Okay, the physical rescue. So it's at my house. It's located in Cypress, Texas, which is near Houston. Here's a picture of it. I'll scroll to a picture of it in 1 second, but it's got a walk-in aviary, which I use for that's their playtime. It's like 10 time, but it's in the aviary. It has 9+ rescue cages, and we try to not keep gliders there very long. It's not a sanctuary. I feel like any glider that comes in, if I can care for it, some other owner out there with fewer gliders can also do that. So they may stay there for longer, but every rescue that comes in, they deserve a home that's not constantly focused on other rescues. So they do go back out again, all of them. We have a temperature alarm, a noise alarm, a camera, and backup power. So if we lose power, like we did in February with the freeze in Texas, where all of Texas lost power when it's 15 degrees outside, we have backup batteries. It's called a Tesla Powerwall that will power our glider room. And actually, when we lost power for 3 days and it was 15 degrees outside, we moved our bed into the glider room, and my dog and my cat, and we all stayed at 75 degrees, even though all of Texas was freezing. I was so happy. My husband, he thought this was going to be a good investment, and I thought this is the most ridiculous, expensive thing that we could ever get. Why would we get this? And then the freeze happened, and all my gliders were saved because of that ridiculous thing. So, and our veterinarian that we mainly use is ABC Animal and Bird Clinic in Sugar Land, Texas. It's not the YouTube vet. His name is Dr. Cronfield, and I also use Dr. Rose quite a bit. She's my glider dentist. So, why did it do that? Where did it go? It just exited. Why? Sorry. Okay, there's our rescue. I don't know if you can see it very well, but against the wall in the rescue cages, that's the aviary. Above the aviary is the heater and cooler, and then behind it is a countertop with a sink. So that's our rescue. It's located in my garage. Since our inception in 2015, our total disbursements to help gliders in need has been $143,213.72. So we do put out a lot of money, and it's thanks to our people who donate, right? That all comes from donations, fundraising, sales on our website, things like that. And since March 2020, when we started keeping track, we have assigned 2,200 people mentors. So we don't have that many mentors. Mentors take on more than one mentee, but we have 2,200 mentees who have been assigned a mentor and been helped. We have 26,000 plus group members on our Facebook, and there have been 436 rescue gliders to come through the Houston Rescue, plus 4 dogs and 5 birds. So. And then a few other things that we do. We have some partnerships with a few SPCAs in Texas. We have a neuter program, so if anyone can't afford a neuter and they ask us for help, we will always help them with some of the cost. Pouch programs, so if we see somebody with an unsafe pouch in any group, we'll message them and offer to send them a free, safer sleeping pouch. We have tons of vendors. We do a lot of fundraising. We have a rescue network, so we work with other rescues all over the country and sometimes the world. Like we have done a rescue in the Philippines before. Files and lists. We have a lot of tutorials. We do a Christmas countdown where we feature 25 gliders that we've helped throughout the year. We send out pet pro food samples, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. We do trainings and educations. I volunteer, I would say most summers, to do a little education with some kids at a little summer camp where they get to learn about gliders. Sandra does Safety Saturdays, and she does an excellent job on those. And we have an informative website, which I want you all to see because it has so many resources that I know you can use. This is our website. That's what it looks like. It's sugarcladderguardians.com when you go to it. If you mouse over glider care, you will see a whole bunch of stuff. And if there's anything you want to know about glider care, we don't do breeding, but other than that, you can click on anything, and it will tell you a lot of information. We worked really hard on this website. There's a pouch tutorial. It's a photo tutorial on how to sew a safe sleeping pouch. So if you don't know, but you want to learn, you do need a sewing machine. We have a nail trim video, which I just sent to you guys. We have a medical issues page where, and I couldn't fit all of them on that screenshot, but you can click on the issue or the symptom that you see in your glider, and it will expand and tell you, what it's from and how to treat it, or if you need a vet. We have a video on how to use e-collars. We have a vet map that is actually global. We have some vets in Asia on there too, but I couldn't fit it all. But that's our vet map, and then also if you click on the little pink thing, you can pull up the list. It's constantly being updated, and there's a form on that page also. If you have an update for us, please submit it. We have printables, so there's things you can print. There's a Sugarcladder brochure in case you go to a fair or festival and you want to hand out accurate information for people. You can print those off. We have an e-collar template that it's a PDF you can print print it off, make your own e-collar. We have a Sugarcladder adoption agreement. It's our standard adoption agreement that we use. You're free to use it too. An adoption application and a surrender release form. Those are all free for anybody to use. We have a place where you can apply to adopt our gliders. And these are the gliders currently available from us right now. So there's a pair of standards, Amos and Anita. They're pretty young, they're about a year. And then there's, I think it's 2 blues and a platinum maybe, or maybe just like a really light white face, I'm not sure. I don't do colors. It's Poseidon, Nefertiti, and Cleopatra. They've been here for a while, and they really need they're reaching the end of their life, and they really need a special home. Let's see, we have a shop where you can buy the Party Ball toy kits, you can buy emergency kits that we put together, you can buy e-collars, decals, valentines, lots of things. We have a blog, and we have a lot of other stuff that I didn't put on here, so I'll spare you. If you want to support Sugarcladder Guardians, there's some ways you can do it. You can choose Guardians as your charity on Amazon Smile. So if you use Amazon, most items are qualifying. It doesn't cost you any extra, but we get half of 1%, which actually does add up. We get probably more than $1,000 a year from it. So, of course, you can use my name in the referral box when you're shopping with Pet Pro, and that'll support the diet study. You can shop with us, you can adopt with us. You can do a Facebook birthday fundraiser. That helps us so much. And that is just your friends giving money, not you. So that's good. Report unfriendly activity on the group to an admin so we can take care of that. Volunteer your time as a mentor or just educating on our page, and of course donating money or items. So that's a little bit about Guardians, and now I will get into the meat of it. Okay? So first we're going to talk about alarming ailments. These are physical things that your gliders will experience and how to deal with them. And the first one is probably the one I'm going to talk about. Oops, I skipped one. Okay, there's a little cute quote for you guys about monsters. And black. The first one I'm going to talk about is dental disease. I'll spend the longest on this one because I'm really sort of passionate about this topic. So in my rescue, and this is all only from my personal experience, the problem that we see most with the rescues that come in is, without a doubt, dental disease. So some of the symptoms, things that you're looking for, is they are like a wet-looking belly. That's a telltale sign that a lot of people don't know. If the belly is wet, it's probably their teeth that are the problem. Head tilt while eating. So if they're eating food and then they like kind of put their head back like this, that's a sign of dental disease. If they grab at their mouth, that's a sign of dental disease. Weight loss, avoiding hard foods or just licking the hard foods, not actually chewing them. Poor grooming, black teeth, obviously, or excessive plaque on the bottom incisors. Bleeding gums, like if you feed a white yogi and then you see red on it, that's kind of an indicator. They can have a lump under their chin, so their jaw kind of looks like it goes down a little bit, like it's just a little lump. That's a sign. And then also like a slightly puffy face. They'll tend to have a more, like, instead of their nose being kind of more pointy but also flat, it'll look more round. I don't know how to describe it really, but when you look at their face and you've seen it enough, you can just look at their face and think, your teeth need help. So causes. A diet that is low in calcium and high in sugar, that's obviously two problems that'll affect the teeth. Lack of dental cleanings. I do take my gliders to the vet to get dental, just for their teeth to get clean if they have a lot of plaque on them, which doesn't usually happen to my personal gliders, but I've done it before. Poor genetics obviously plays a role, and then age. Usually you don't see dental problems in 2-year-old gliders, you see dental problems in 7- and 8-year-old gliders. And then cure and prevention. So obviously dental cleanings are going to be helpful, diet, and everybody has a different definition of what that is, and I have a lot to say about it. And then tooth extractions. So when your glider has dental disease, tooth extractions are almost always going to be necessary. And if your vet won't extract teeth, you need to find a vet who will. Because what's going to happen if they won't take the teeth out is they'll give you an antibiotic. It might clear up for a month or two, then it's going to come back. And you're going to be on this cycle. And I know you guys know how painful it is to have a toothache, right? It's like you can't think about anything else. You just want to get to the dentist and get that tooth fixed. Well, imagine having like a whole mouth full of rotten teeth, right? That's what a lot of these gliders have. So when I say dental problems, I'm not talking about one bad tooth. I'm talking about black, decaying teeth in the whole mouth that all need to come out, and this disease is deadly. It's horrific and it's deadly. I can't stress it enough. Like, you do not want to experience this. You want to do what you can to, I mean, this is the most horrifying ailment on my, parade of horrors, is dental disease, in my opinion. So what we've seen at the rescue, so a lot of the gliders that come into the rescue are fed TBG because the pet glider is right down there by us in Houston. They buy their gliders from TBG and then they feed TBG. That is, in my opinion, the diet that is the worst offender. We see so many gliders with horrific dental disease and they've been fed TBG their whole lives. And that's the case with Poseidon, Cleopatra, and Nefertiti. They had 14 teeth pulled between the three of them. And Poseidon's bottom jaw is deteriorated so that it looks like he has a really severe overbite, but really his bottom jaw has receded. So it's horrific. So this is why, in 2016, I started feeding a kibble-based diet. We called it Alea's Happy Glider. Me and Jim came up with a name. It's based on the Pet Pro kibble, and I used to feed TBG, but 2016 I switched. My gliders are healthier. All of my personal gliders are at least 8 years old, and we've never had a single tooth pulled. We've never had any dental abscesses, nothing. And I credit it to feeding a kibble-based diet that's also nutritionally adequate instead of a diet that I call sugary slop. So I think a lot of the diets are sugary slop, and I think as a community, we can do better than just say, oh, it's been around a long time, therefore it's trustworthy. I think if it's been around a long time and you're seeing a lot of dental disease, something should change. We should be able to recognize that. So I am a big fan of kibble-based diets, and there are two. There's the BML kibble, and there's the Happy Glider. I like both diets. I recommend both diets. I don't care which one you feed, but I think it's far superior to a sugary slop diet. And don't just say, my gliders don't eat it as well. Of course they don't, because it's not like sugar, right? If you give me a salad and you give me a cake, which one am I going to eat? I'm going to eat the cake, right? But you can't just sell for what your gliders like better, because if they're like children, it will not be healthy for them. So I actually won't even adopt to people who don't feed a kibble-based diet, or I request that they switch, and if they don't switch, I won't adopt them, because I think dental disease is so pervasive, and it's really something that people fail to consider, including me. With the Pet Pro, I got lucky. Dental wasn't a consideration for me at the beginning, but it is now, because we see so much dental disease. And again, if your glider has dental disease, they will not get better unless you get some of their bad teeth pulled. And you should have a vet that looks in their mouth and says, ooh, that molar is iffy, I'm gonna take it out. Because there's no harm in taking out the molars. The front incisors, those are a little more touchy, but your vet should be pulling the bad teeth on your gliders. And if they won't, you need to find a vet who will, because your gliders will not get better. And all these gliders up here, obviously, are gliders who have dental disease. If you'll see the second picture on the top, she's eating and she's like holding her head back like this. That's what they do. Their mouth hurts when they eat, so they tilt their head back. All of those gliders have dental disease. That is a little picture of all of the teeth that were pulled from friend's gliders. There's a picture of the wet belly. Dental disease is horrific, and you want to look at it. So now we'll move on from my favorite topic. facial abscesses. These are often caused by bad teeth, but not always. They can be multiple and connected, so you can have a glider who has an abscess underneath the eye, and then suddenly the top of its head is swollen, right? And that is such a bummer. It's such a hard treatment, but they can be multiple and they're connected. Probably this one is connected to this one. Veterinary care is required for an abscess. You're not going to treat it at home. Antibiotics alone probably will not work. You're going to have to get that abscess drained, and you may have to continuously flush it out with saline. But when I have these, my vet will make, he calls it an X incision, so it's an incision in the shape of an X, which helps it to stay open. And then I take home some saline and I flush it out with the saline, per his instruction. Flush it out with the saline twice a day. It helps it heal faster. It helps get the pus out twice a day. It's really gross, but that's what you have to do. And on Moffat, who's the one in the top right corner, you push it into his cheek and it would come out his eye, and it's just really nasty. But these things are really hard to deal with, but they can happen. And then, especially if it's dental related, it's going to keep happening until you pull the back tooth. And it can be a long recovery process because they can just keep popping up on different parts of the face. But you do need vet care, and rinsing it helps a lot. So the next one we're going to talk about is seizures. And this is a trigger warning. I'm going to show a video of a glider having a seizure while I'm talking. So here you are. So that glider is having a seizure. His name's Doc. He had seizures when I would take him out. I think they were stress related. He's now in a great home. But some things, that's not what all seizures look like, but if your glider's doing that, he is having a seizure. There's some things to consider when you see your glider having a seizure. So first consider how long the seizure lasts and whether medication would be useful. So if your glider is having a seizure, you don't necessarily go to the vet and say, I need anti-seizure medication. Why? Because he has a seizure when I take him out and handle it. So what do I have to do if I'm going to give him medication? I have to take him out and handle it. That doesn't make any sense. And if they're not lasting too long, which it doesn't last too long, and he was fine afterwards, you can see I'll pick him up. We just do nothing, right? We just try to avoid the seizure, right? So by trying to avoid the seizure, you need to know the cause of the seizure, which for him was most nail trims. Anytime I would take him out and handle him, he would have a seizure. So I tried to not do that. If he wants to come out for playtime, I'll leave his cage open. It's his choice, right? If I'm going to handle him, if I have to handle him, I turn the lights off. And I make sure he's in a pouch. So that's something to consider. Also, you can try to work toward fewer seizures. So try to train them so that they are more and more comfortable with handling. And I would say most of the seizures that I see are when they're being handled. Or the last point is if your glider is having many seizures in a row, if it's sick and then it's seizure after seizure after seizure, the end is near, and there's probably not much you can do about it. But for him, he's perfectly healthy, other than the seizures. And in his new home, he's only had one, and the new owner said that was when the lights were off, they were out for playtime, and the new owner accidentally dropped their phone right next to him, and it startled him, and then he had a seizure. So. All right. Over-grooming and self-mutilation. This can be a difficult problem, especially if your glider is hurting themselves. There's photos of a few gliders up there with over-grooming. Like the one on the top right, she over-groomed her whole face. Not really an issue. With a better diet and a better cage setup at my house, it grew right in. She's fine. But if they're mutilating, like this little white one in the bottom left, that was Ghost. If they're mutilating, if they're chewing their toes off, they're chewing holes in their tails, they're amputating their own tail, that sounds like you're gonna need a cone, right? We sell those, and we have a video on how to use it. Or you're gonna need an E-jacket, which you can get from Peace. Or you're gonna need both, because they can wriggle out of it, or, I mean, she was really not happy with me. But if you can see on the third picture on the bottom, she had chewed 2 holes in her tail, she chewed a hole in her butt, and she chewed 2 of her toes off. And then after that picture, she amputated her own tail. I got up one morning, I checked on her, and her tail was hanging by a string. And I brought her to the vet, and the vet said, she actually did a pretty good job. But she was a real challenge. So if this is happening, you need to separate them from the others, because the others might be making their injury worse, but that also makes the self-mutilation worse, so you have to kind of balance it, but I pretty much always separate. But I do supervise playtime. If they're in a collar, or I'll take off the collar, if you know you can get it back on. I'll take off the collar so they can eat, they can play, they can do a meet and greet with their friends, and I'm watching so nobody's making any wounds worse. And then I think that helps a lot. Auto amputation, that's what we talked about. Vet visit is probably required with self-mutilation, and it can be a symptom of stress, loneliness, pain, or parasitic infection. So I often notice that gliders who are over-grooming their butt area, like they don't have a lot of fur right above their tail on their butt, they often test positive for parasites. So I don't know if that's related, but that's something that I've observed with my rescues. Also, I'll get to that in a second. A dominance wound. So, a lot of people think that these are mating wounds, and they can be, but dominance wounds, they happen on the back, neck, shoulders, and it can be given by any glider to any glider. It's not specific to males giving it to females. It's intact or not, doesn't matter. By any glider to any glider. The treatment for this is I consider it part of glider ownership. Dominance wounds, part of glider ownership. You're not going to be able to totally avoid it. You need to separate them until the wound is healed, because others will make things worse. Veterinary care is recommended unless it's real small and you think you can treat it at home. Be careful with that. You may be able to. But vets will give you antibiotics, which is nice to have, or they're nice to have. Avoid stitches if possible. You want to leave it open. It'll feel better if it's open. And if you stitch it up, you sometimes stitch the infection in there, and then it's a lot harder to treat. And then watch for signs of infection or complications. I don't know if you guys know Mo. He's kind of like Sugarcladder Guardians' unofficial mascot. He's actually we found out, but so big. He was so big that the pouch was so stretched out, it looked like a neuter scar. So but anyways, we were on Animal Planet together. I recently tried to introduce Gizmo to Mo. Gizmo gave Mo a dominance wound on Mo's neck, and it was fine, but it got infected. And I took Mo to the vet, but subsequently it got infected. Mo wasn't feeling well. Mo stopped eating, right? So it's not Gizmo's fault, but Mo stopped eating. And Mo was such a big glider that she was super susceptible to fatty liver disease, which is when obese gliders stop eating, the liver gets fatty, and the only cure is to get them to eat again. But they just feel worse and worse, and then they don't want to eat. So it's downhill. Mo died, which was pretty devastating. But it's like dominance wounds can trigger other issues, so you want to get them treated as fast as possible. Okay. Urinary tract infections. The symptoms of this are, the most notable is hissing while peeing. That is different than hissing while pooping. Hissing while pooping is normal. Hissing while peeing is not normal. If your glider is hissing while peeing, you should probably take them to the vet. I used to have a glider named Chatter, who was in my personal colony. I would walk into my glider room and I would smell it, and I would know Chatter has a UTI, because I could smell the urine. I knew it was Chatter because it was always Chatter. And so, I don't know why, but I could smell it. So if you smell like strong smelling urine that you're not used to, it could potentially be a UTI. Veterinary care is required. You need antibiotics, and if the antibiotics don't work, then move into other more invasive testing if your vet recommends it. But I think it's better if you just treat it as a UTI and do the antibiotics before your vet wants to like take a urine sample out of the bladder to make sure it's a UTI. Right? There's no reason to do that. Just give them the antibiotics and then go from there. And they can be recurring. As I said, it was always Chatter who had them. Okay, lethargy. If your bladder is lethargic, this is probably, well, first of all, it's not a good sign, right? You want to fix this if you can. You want to, and it's not like, this isn't a disease in itself, it's a symptom of something else that's wrong. You want to keep the bladder warm and hydrated, right? Warm and hydrated, I say that 20 times a day, I think. Warm and hydrated. Put it in your shirt, offer a Gatorade, juice, water, Pedialyte, and if your bladder is lethargic, there's a chance that it has run out of water in its cage. So that's the first thing I always tell owners, check your water sources. Yes, I said sources, not water source, water sources, right? Bottles get clogged, fall off, run out, leak. You need more than one water source, and you need to, and this is probably the most common thing we see for, I would call it owner neglect, is the water sources. Veterinary care can help a lot because they can do sub-Q fluids. If you do your own sub-Q fluids at home, fine. Make sure you heat them up first. And this is a dangerous condition. That's a sign of something seriously wrong, right? If they don't have any water, that's a serious problem. And obviously, sometimes they'll die. If they're lethargic, they could be dying. Yes. Yes.
Okay. What you said is correct, make sure they get plenty of fluids. Do not push the foods.
Yeah, don't push the foods. Right. Warm and hydrated. That's what you said, right? Don't push the foods.
Do not push the food.
Right.
A lot of people are afraid their bladder's going to start that. And by pushing the foods, it's actually taking away more
moisture from the body. Yeah. So warm and hydrated. Thank you, Bourbon. You want a candy bar? You're participating.
Don't push the food.
For participating.
Don't push food, walk in.
Okay. Injuries to extremities. This would be injuries to hand, feet, tail. This is usually not an emergency. If you see an injury on your bladder's toe, don't panic. Okay, it's fine. It's going to be fine. It's often caused by unsafe pouches. If your pouch is stringy on the inside or the outside, or it's fraying, that can cause a lot of these injuries. Amputation could be necessary if they don't amputate their own body parts, and there's a high risk of self-mutilation. The bottom right photo is, and the bottom left photo actually, that's Gizmo, who had 4 tail amputations, really just kept on amputating further and further up the tail, and now she has no tail, obviously, from that picture. Because she started out with, I don't know how it started. She came to me after amputation number 2, but it's not an emergency. Don't take it to an emergency vet, right? If that's their only symptom. It's too expensive. Why did... There's a problem with Microsoft PowerPoint.
It was all Microsoft.
Okay, sorry. Okay. Joey problems. I'm not going to go into it because as a rescue we don't breed. I'm not really going to go into these. If you have Joey problems, you need to get a mentor or somebody who's experienced with Joey's. But I will just say one thing about the last one, and that's ick. If your Joey's fur starts to look like the Joey on the right, sort of matted, sort of yellow, kind of nasty, it's called ick, and it's a skin infection. And if your glider does not get pet care, it's probably gonna die. So if you recognize that, you need to get it to the vet, because Joeys do not survive that without vet care. I know one who survived it without vet care, but they don't. You can't fix it, it's not normal, you need to get vet care.
What causes it?
What causes it, I don't know.
Bacteria.
If bacteria, you need to do a CNS to find out what bacteria is.
Yeah, your vet will do the expensive test and then
You gotta tell them
figure
that,
out.
some of them don't know that.
And don't talk to Facebook, because they're not gonna be able to tell you.
Yeah, there are some breeders who have experience with it, and you should talk to them. I had this one,
Well, what they're
and
gonna do is tell you to go to the vet.
They will be able to give you, prelim that you can take care of until you get to the vet. Because not all vets have the same day appointment.
And not all of them are the same bacteria.
yeah, you're right, not all of it is the same bacteria, so the same medication that fixes your bladder isn't gonna necessarily fix your bladder. Okay, so poop problems. This would include diarrhea and constipation. If your bladder has diarrhea, it is, sometimes this is, this happens when it's something they eat, disagree with them. But if it's ongoing and it's really smelly, you need to give them a fecal and tell your vet to look for giardia. Some vets don't look for that. Some vets think bladders can't get that. They need to look for giardia on the fecal. Diarrhea is usually a symptom of something else. And medications and probiotics can help. If they have a parasite, it's easy to treat. I mean, it's treatable if you let it go for too long. It's deadly, but it's very easily treated. Constipation is less common than owners think. I get a lot of messages that say, oh yeah, I think my bladder's constipated. Okay, first question you have to ask, what makes you think that? Well, they're hissing while they're pooping. Are they still pooping? Yes. That's normal. Hissing while pooping is normal. And if they can't poop, then that's constipation. The only thing that I've really found, I mean, people will say pumpkin, watermelon, and all these things. The only thing that I've really found that works is lactulose, but you have to be very, very careful with that. Get it from your vet, obviously, but it can very quickly go the other way and lead to diarrhea and dehydration very fast. So use that with extreme caution. And then true constipation can be difficult to treat and it can be recurring. Oh, sure.
I forgot what you said about what we need to ask the vet to look for the diarrhea. For the
Oh, sure. Tell your vet to look for giardia. They will probably look for several organisms. Some vets will also look for giardia without being asked, and some won't. But giardia is, in my opinion, like the worst one, and it's the one that a lot of vets think bladders can't get, even though they do. I've had 23 bladders with giardia before.
And if you feed a diet that has bee pollen in it, make sure you let your vet know.
Yeah, bee pollen can be mistaken for
floaties. Called floaties.
strong guys. Okay.
Strong shells.
Okay. Next is prolapsed penis. And I want to be very clear about my photo. So the photo on the left is a normal penis. Healthy, nothing wrong with it. If you see that on your bladder, do not be alarmed. Don't pull it, don't lube it, don't put any Vaseline on it, nothing. Just leave it. If you see it on the right, if you see that on your bladder, that's cause for alarm. It's all black if you can't see it. So prolapsed penis, I think that as owners, we make this a lot worse, and we make this a lot more, like, we make issues when there shouldn't be any. Because when you see your bladder's penis up like that, you leave it alone. You don't do anything. You run to Facebook, and they're all gonna say, put K-Ride jelly on it. And they leave it, yes.
What happens when it stays that way for too long?
Yeah, right, I'll get to that. So you want to leave it, it's probably healthy and fine. Now if you notice the tip of it start turning black, okay, which is what it will happen if it stays that way for days, probably.
That's too late. By the time it gets black, it's too late.
I disagree. I think that,
It's already going to dry.
But if you intervene too early, you're gonna cause that problem, right? You're gonna make the glider wanna lick that Vaseline off. And I think we cause a lot more problems than
I
help.
wouldn't put anything on it, I would.
Do you wanna come up here?
I just run to the bed is all, if you have that one to stay comfortable.
I do, yeah, okay, run to the vet, that's fine, but just make sure your vet knows it's not a problem either.
Well, I mean, you know, with our experience, yes.
So if you see necrotic tissue on the right, or usually it's not gonna be that bad, that was really bad. Then it's gonna need to be amputated. If the tips just need to be amputated, don't panic, they don't pee from the tip anyways, right? They pee from where it forks, that's where they pee from. They can still pee, even if it is necrotic, and even when you cut it off. And so I want to talk about the glider on the right. His name was Morrison, and he had a necrotic penis. He would stop chewing on it, so it turned necrotic. And so I took him to the vet, as David would do, and as I did, and we amputated the penis thinking that would solve the problem, right? You can't chew on it anymore, it's not there. So I adopted him out, it was very sad. I adopted him out, and the owner said, okay, well now he's chewing on his tail. And so she did an x-ray, which you wouldn't necessarily think to do with a necrotic penis. You don't think, I'm gonna do an x-ray, right? But she did an x-ray, she had her vet do an x-ray, and he had the very first tailbone at the base of his tail was broken. So he was chewing on his penis because the base of his tail was broken. And unfortunately, because it's in the same area, in the same vicinity, unfortunately, you can't amputate that far up. And he was clearly in pain, so he was euthanized. But he started out with a necrotic penis. So it was very sad, but it can be a symptom of something else, usually I don't think it is. Extreme temperature variations, if it gets too hot or too cold, if you're trying to keep your gliders warm or cold, consider going in your car, right? If your hot is too hot or too cold, sit in your car with them until you can get your problem resolved. Use space heaters or hand warmers very, very cautiously. Use extra blankets, cage covers, use your own body heat. And also the best way to avoid this is to be prepared in advance, right? Have a generator, have a backup battery, have a friend whose house you can go to. And same with keeping cool. Use open environment pouches. Those are the ones that kind of usually hang from the top of the cage or hang in the corner, and they're not enclosed. That'll help keep it cool. And just don't take your gliders, like, if it's 100 degrees, don't take your gliders to the beach, right? Just don't. Use common sense and be prepared in advance. And then if anyone else has any other ideas about how to, like, with temperature, I'd like to hear those, because I didn't think this was, I think there's other ideas that I'm not thinking of.
One thing that I've been using terracotta in the winter time is to use those hot packs, like the hand warmers.
Yeah, the hot hands.
And put that in, like, in a little, like, fold it in fleece and stick it in there, so it's like.
Yeah, you gotta wrap it in fleece, but I have used those before, and they did work. What did you say, Doctor?
The terracotta planters, put a candle in them.
Oh.
Instead of one brace, put a candle in them and it gets off heat.
Oh, I didn't know that. Terracotta planter with a candle. To keep warm.
It works like.
Oh, interesting. All right. Yes.
It's something we use for our bird. There's this little bird heater that's not hot to the touch, and it goes right in the cage.
Does it have like batteries or how does it
No,
work?
it plugs into the wall, and you can like put your hand against it and feel it warm, but it won't burn you. It's just warm enough where they can cut off against it.
Interesting. I guess there's more solutions that. There's all kinds of
The wire
solutions.
sticks out of the cage, so if it's like that, that's this on,
Right.
so they just can't get the wire out all day long.
Yeah, if you have electricity, right.
And they can't reach around to grab the wire, there's enough
No, that
vacuum.
was enough. It's really nice.
So other emergencies, this will wrap up the first, the bulk of it. Other emergencies, keep your glider warm and hydrated. If you think you're having an emergency situation, keep your glider warm and hydrated. Those are the best things you can do. Warm, hydrated, vet, right? Those are the three things in that order. And then if you're looking at taking them to an emergency vet, consider what the vet can do and how much it's gonna cost, right? If they're gonna charge you $850 to tell you, I can't do anything, make an appointment with your regular vet, that's stupid, okay? So consider, they're just gonna stabilize your glider. If your glider is already stable, you probably don't wanna spend the money to do that, because I always think emergency vets will charge 5 times as much to do 1/5 as much as your normal vet will. And then obviously, as with any emergency, be prepared for the emergency before it happens. We do sell emergency kits, but you can hear what I talked about, and there's all kinds of other problems that you can sort of be more prepared for. And education is preparation. So, good job for being here. And have pain medication on hand if your vet will like it, if they'll give it to you. So, oops. Okay, misbehaving monsters. These are just 2 behavioral problems that I will talk about. Fighting and food aggression. So, this is when they won't let each other eat, right? They chase each other away from the food bowl. A few things you can do for that is have 2 or more food stations that are as far apart as you can make them. One glider can't defend 2 food stations. Make sure all your meals are neutered. That helps a lot. And change things up. It's sort of distracting for them. If you rearrange their cage items or clean it, or you put a new smell in there, it's distracting for them and they will fight less, in my experience. And refusal to eat, that's sort of the opposite of the food aggression. As I talked about with Mo, overweight gliders are at risk of hepatic amputation, which is fatty liver disease. So you want them to be able to eat a wide variety of foods, and you want them to be used to eating a wide variety of foods, so that if they don't feel well, you have a lot of options to see what they want to eat. And diet in general, don't just settle for what they like, right? Because that may not be the best choice. And escape gliders. If your glider gets out of your house, a few things you can do are restrain all your other pets, right? Lock the dogs up, lock the cats up, lock the children up. And put them in another room where you don't think your glider is. Close your windows and doors. Don't step on anything. Don't sit on anything. Don't do laundry. Just be very careful, because
Don't take the trash out.
right, don't take the trash out. You have to walk on eggshells. You want to find your glider before you do anything. Turn off all the lights. Use treats. Use pouches. You can sprinkle some flour on the floor at night if you still have time by nighttime, so that you can maybe see your footprints. Consider what they could have fallen into. So one of the gliders, Ambrosius, that I adopted out to a home, he escaped his cage, and the adopter had a bed that had posts on it, it was like a 4-poster bed, and one of the posts didn't have a cap on it. So Ambrosius climbed up and fell in there, right? Fell inside the middle post, and they didn't find it until it was way, way too late. So consider what they could have fallen into, whether it's water or not. Obviously, toilets are the most obvious. But like an orange juice container sitting on the counter that's open, it could fall in there. They can fall into anything, so you really need to just really think, get into their heads. So that's what you can do with an escape glider.
Can I add something? Because it's kind of funny. So last week I was trimming nails, and I have 2 butterfly nets. Now I'm going to make sure they're right next to the nail trimming. But at the time they weren't, and the glider was a little faster than I was. And so I'm chasing it, and I'm like, I can't get in the butterfly net, or I'll lose sight of the glider. Well, taking off your blouse and tossing it over the glider, I never would have thought of, but I did. And, obviously I caught the glider and they weren't stressed out, but you got to do what you got to do. And thank God there's trees. And
And if you're gonna do any laundry, check your laundry.
Yeah, right. That's right, David. I hear of gliders getting washed in the washing machine too often, and it's very sad. It's very sad.
That's not how you
Don't bathe your gliders, especially not in the washing machine. Alright. The final couple slides are going to be horrifying humans. So human behavioral issues that have to do with gliders and what to do when you see them. therapeutic quote by Nietzsche for you. Whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process he does not become a monster. Alright, a glider who needs new humans. You've all seen these, right? Craigslist gliders, pet store gliders, gliders who belong to most teenagers, right? They need a new human. So if you want to help that glider, this is what you can do. First, you look at the glider, you look at the situation, you think, can I really help this glider? Do I have the resources? Can I afford the care it needs? Do I know somebody who can? Do I have the transportation? Can I really help? Because if you can't help, then don't try. Somebody else, just alert somebody else who can, right? Because what you do if you can't help, you act interested, and then the seller, if it's a seller, they think, ooh, I've got lots of interest. I can be choosy about who I sell to. I don't have to lower my price. And you're not helping the glider. So the second one I just touched on is ask for help. The third one, make friends first. So if I see a glider in an aquarium at a pet store, and I go in there and I say, oh my gosh, this glider must be so visible. I can't believe you have this glider in this aquarium. Don't you know gliders need to be able to climb? Where's its pouch? Why is it in my bedding? Why are you feeding it Spam? They're gonna think, screw you, lady, please, right? If I say, oh my gosh, that is such an adorable glider. I have gliders too. They are so cute, aren't they? I know you care about it so much. You know what? My vet told me that pine and bedding is not good. Or my vet told me they like to climb, right? And you make friends with them first. And you make them, you be on their team, right? They're probably not neglecting the glider on purpose. They're not gonna listen to you unless you're on their team first. So you make friends first, you offer to help. What can I do to help? Can I bring you a safer sleeping pouch? Would you like to try the food that I feed? I'm happy to bring it to you. And then once you build that relationship, and you say, oh, look, here's a photo of my setup. You know, do you think this glider would like that? This is why I have this wheel instead of the one that you have, because I heard they can, you know, break their necks on the bars. You make friends first, you be on their team, and then you offer. Well, do you think that you could take $200 for it and I would give it a great home? I will give it the care it needs. You know, I can see that it's overgrooming its tail, but I have a friend that I have a glider that I can be friends with. And then you make the offer, but you have to, it's about how they perceive you and whether you're trying to help or whether you're trying to attack them. So that's how you can help the glider who needs you. If you need to rehome your gliders, be extremely choosy, ask for photos and references. If they have bad supplies, that is more easily fixed than if they are a rotten person, right? So I am more thinking about the kind of people I adopt to than what they actually have, because that's easily fixed. And if they want to learn, and I would only adopt people who want to learn, they would hear me when I say, you need a raptor wheel instead of a water wheel, and here's why. Right? That's a person, that's a supply problem, but the person will be able to fix it. Whereas if they're closed off, they're not going to fix it. And then use our adoption agreement. It's pretty good. And lastly, if you see bullying or unkindness on the internet about gliders, you should know that that's probably not helping anybody. You should report it to an admin or send a screenshot to me or my admins or the admins of the group, or send a message to the person who's under attack or who feels attacked, who you see feels attacked, even if you don't see them being attacked, if they feel that way, then they're not going to listen to any advice anybody has. Send a message, offer to help, post a reminder to be friendly, and give better, more friendly advice and explain it, right? They're going to listen to you if they feel like you're on their team. If they feel like you want to help, you're not judging them, you're not attacking them, you're not being a jerk. So, and that will help gliders. That is pretty much the premise of Sugarcladder Guardians. That's why I started the Facebook group, because I thought the other groups were so mean. You're not going to help any gliders when people feel attacked. If I feel like you're attacking me, all I want to do is get away from you, right? You're not going to listen to what you have to say. So that is pretty much it. Thank you to Bobby and Leanne. Thanks, Bobby. Thanks, Leanne. Thank you for having Sugarcladder Guardians. We really appreciate it. I love this gathering. Thank you for having me. please.
The person said, oh no, you can't do that. Do a response to that person's self. Tell them why.
Yeah, tell them why. Right.
Don't just say no.
Yeah.
Because they're not gonna listen to you.
Right. If you
Tell
have,
them why you can't and be nice.
yeah, most reasonable people can be educated and want to be educated in the right way, and if you explain it to them, they might just listen.
Yeah.
Good point.
Don't be mean like, oh, I know everything.
Right, right.
Tell them why, you need to tell them why they can't do it.
I agree.
And they explain it in simple terms.
Yeah, right, right. Don't use all our acronyms, right? Like, well, your glider is FTT because it's on TPG instead of blah, blah, blah. They're not gonna understand. They don't understand.
Yeah.
Yes, Amber.
With step cues, do you have a preference, ringers over saline?
No, and I don't even know which one I have at home now that you, I think it's just saline. No, I don't know. I can get back to you when I get home and look at my
Ringers,
bag.
ringers, you have to have a vet, a prescription for it, a saline pill.
But if you're vet, will you want to eat one?
Yeah, that's.
Then which one do you want? I don't know.
Then after that,
Yeah.
you gotta go to get it anyways.
But sometimes vets will trust you enough to let you keep it on hand.
Right.
Yeah. Laura.
You were talking about the glider that had the seizure, and you were able to get away from it.
Yeah.
Everybody has parameters for, in order to let a glider leave their house. With a glider that has a seizure, do you have additional things that you're looking for in the new potential home, or is it still the same process?
So, right, with Doc, I would not have rehomed Doc, and he had a friend too, they went as a pair. I would not have rehomed him to somebody who had said, I've got 3 big dogs, they're inside dogs, so I'm gonna keep these guys in my living room, right? And I also have 6 children and the TV's always blaring. I would not have done that, right? He's gotta have a calm, quiet environment, which is the environment I prefer for all my gliders, calm and quiet. But I would not have done that. How Doc got his home was I posted a video of the seizure, and the seizure glider, I said these gliders need a really special home, and someone contacted me, and he said, that video spoke to me, I will work with that glider, I want to help that glider, I can give that glider the time, and I thought, yes, you're the kind of doctor I want.
Okay.
Yes. Sure.
Now, did Doc develop seizures after, or did he have seizures before you got him?
So the owners, the prior owners, who were also lawyers randomly, never reported any seizures to me.
And how old was he?
1 or 2, pretty young. But also, I think they may not have known what the seizure would look like if he had had one, and they didn't handle him enough to know if he had them or not. So it's hard to say if he had seizures before me or not. Hopefully, it's not me that was seizure inducing, but I don't know.
Most of the gliders that I've experienced with, personally or other people have had them with their gliders that have seizures. It usually starts around 2 years old.
Okay, all right. And that's a good point. And I've also noticed that I think, and this may not be right, but I think gliders who are not handled for a long time and then get handled, I think sometimes that's enough to cause seizures. So that's just an observation that I have. I don't know if that's true, but I did notice in one of the gliders that I had personally, I didn't handle them for, longer than normal, but she used to be a raw baby, and now she's 8 years old, and she had a seizure a few weeks ago, and I was like, is this because I didn't handle you for, a little while, because my grandma died, and I was whatever. But, I mean, she never had a seizure, she hasn't had it. So, I don't know, and I don't know the answer.
My glider that had seizures, she was handled a ton, but she was also a big baby. And she had a lot of, she had one knee when she was Joey, she had several failed amputations. She went through a ton of stuff, but she was constantly ill.
Oh.
And it just showed up one day about 2 years old. So I can't say whether or not it had anything to do with any of the medication that she was on when she was a baby, about 2 years old, and that's when hers were.
And I tend to think that seizures are, sometimes it can be like that is the only thing, but sometimes seizures can be caused by something else that we don't see. And I don't think every seizure in every glider has the same cause, like different things.
But hers was the same way, if you took her out.
Yeah, right.
While she was in her pouch, either a bonding pouch or in her cage, she was fine. The minute you took her out,
Yeah.
she would have.
That's the most common thing I hear. Is there any other questions? Yes.
I had some complaints
For what?
For refusal to eat. Do you mind if you go back to that slide just so I can write down those complaints?
Sure, but also this presentation is posted on our website already. I have posted it. I will put it up here for you.
Warm and hydrated.
Yeah, warm and hydrated, and they should eat. But, and the most concerning thing about refusal to eat is when you have a really fat glider who suddenly stops eating, because fatty liver disease, it's pretty quick, and it just makes them feel worse, and then they eat less, and feel worse, and eat less. And you'll notice that it's happening because their nose and their hands will start turning yellow, and that's because of their liver. So, that's, but if your glider is at less risk of that if they're normal size, which is another reason to have healthy weight. Yes, Tom?
Well, they're like, just like one day or something, it could be the moon.
Probably not. It probably wouldn't happen for just one day. Several days?
Our gliders, once in a while, they won't eat, on certain days.
Oh, yeah. I think that usually fatty liver disease has some sort of catalyst that happens, like a wound or something else that makes them not want to eat. And it's, I mean, they don't die after one day. It just, they don't eat, and then they start eating less and less and less, and then they don't pick it back up again. Like not eating for a day, I would say that's normal. Not eating for 4 days, that's cause for concern. Thank you for that input. Any other questions?
On the fatty liver disease, if you catch it in time, is it reversible?
So it is reversible if you can get them to eat.
Okay.
That's the frustrating thing is, but why won't you eat? You're gonna die.
I've had one that had that, he wouldn't eat.
I know, and it's like a cycle, right? They don't eat, so they don't feel good, so they don't eat, so they don't feel good.
Right, right.
It's a cycle, but that's, yeah, the only solution is calories.
That was my $3,500 Craigslist glider.
What?
$50 glider that turned into 3,000, I mean, okay.
Thank you for helping, I
You're a veterinarian, I appreciate
Yes.
you so far.
Too late for what I want for it, right?
So, we're talking about is fatty liver disease reversible as a witness to eat, is there a time when you're on that? Ish?
It's a few days,
Okay.
but they're going downhill, like, the sooner the better, right? Because they're continuing to go downhill, which means the chances of them wanting to eat are less and less. So the sooner the better, and literally feed them what they will eat. Like, if they want to eat cake, let them eat cake, because it's so,
Don't post it on Facebook, don't.
yeah, well, say it, just bring it.
Yeah, you should, but if they'll eat it, give them whatever it is
Yeah.
that they'll eat at that point, that's all you want, is to
Yeah,
get them to.
calories.
So,
Calories.
the other thing, I mean, obviously forcing is never the ideal. Has anyone ever done a glider and had success?
I've never done that, and I don't know if anyone here has or not, but the problem is it's not sustainable. Like, if they continue to not want to eat,
Right.
they're gonna die.
But if you got started with two.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know,
Okay.
but if you try it, I wanna hear about it.